Today I'm going to talk about this paper called Data-Driven Mergers and Personalization. Now, I don't know what your backgrounds are. I presume you are from College of Business. So there will be people with background in maybe management, finance, accounting, and so forth, but probably not in economics. I'm an economist by training, so my paper is economics paper. And you know how economists are. Economists are very boring. They use mathematics and try to make things deliberately unnecessarily more complicated than how it can be. So in this paper, I'll try to make things as simple as possible. Try to explain things as intuitively as I can. Now this paper is co-authored with three people. Jijun Chen is my colleague at Monash University, and Jia Chong is Jijun's co-author based at Fudan University in Shanghai. I haven't met him, but we Zoomed quite often. So he's one of those co-authors whom you have never met in person. And the fourth co-author is Noriaki Matsushima. He is my co-author based at Osaka University. And Noriaki and I have been working on various projects together for the past 10 years. So this is my second paper with co-authors from China and Japan. So we are probably going for Nobel Peace Prize with this project. Right, if you have any questions, please stop me anytime. Now, before I start, let me talk about myself a little bit and then my center. I'm currently Director of Center for Global Business at Monash University in Melbourne, and I'm also a professor at the Department of Economics. The Center for Global Business at Monash University, it is a multidisciplinary center. It currently has 10 research networks, and we have the following key research themes. Digital economy and governance and regulation are the two key themes that the center is focusing on. But there are other themes such as industrial relations, leadership and OB, and energy markets, and global value chains. And because we are a Center for Global Business, we have specific regional focus on East Asia, 3 countries, and South Asia as well. If you are interested in learning more about the center, I'm going to share my slides after my talk today. So I'll email it to Professor Hong, and who can share it with you. So if you click the link, for instance, you can see our annual report. I took over center last year. So this year we prepared our first ever annual report. Okay? So if you're interested, come and have a look at the annual report and you'll see more about the center. Okay. And as Professor Hong mentioned, PNU's BK21 project is partnering with the Center for Global Business. So I look forward to having some of you visiting us in the future, hopefully not far away from now. Right, so the paper is about data-driven mergers. And our main interest is in mergers between technology firms, or tech mergers, so to speak. Now, as you would understand, the tech mergers are becoming really, really prevalent. And modern world, we are heading to 4th industrial revolution, and digital economies and tech firms dominate the global world. If you look at top 5 firms in the world, they are who's in digital industries such as Apple, for instance, Microsoft, Google, and so on. In the past 10 years, there were about 400 acquisitions by so-called Big Five, we call GAFAM, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft. And a lot of these acquisitions were in complementary services. Typically, for instance, if a new startup develops new app, then this company buys this company and merges the company into the existing complementary services. Okay, so these acquisitions are usually done through complementary services or buying startups. And the thing is, these tech mergers are pretty new from competition authorities' point of view. So they didn't know how to deal with it. Traditional merger policies are about vertical mergers or horizontal mergers. And when, for instance, Facebook buys Instagram, authorities didn't know how to approach this particular merger. So none of these mergers were blocked, and there were few conditions attached to it. And what is especially interesting is that many of these cases involve huge amount of consumer data transferred from the target to the acquiring firm. And you would recognize many of these mergers. For instance, back in 2012, Facebook purchased Instagram, and Google purchase of Waze. Waze is a navigation uh, company. Facebook WhatsApp 2014, and Microsoft LinkedIn 2016. Apple Shazam 2018. Shazam is music recognition app. And more recently, Google has made a bid to buy Fitbit back in November 2019. And this is under regulatory investigation by several countries. For instance, in the US and in the EU, Australia, and South Africa, Google Fitbit merger proposal is being investigated. Because these mergers all involve huge amount of data, consumer data, we call these data-driven mergers. And this is our primary interest in this paper. Okay. So why do companies try to buy firms, startups or small firms that have huge amount of data? Back in 2012, The Economist wrote famously that data is now new oil of digital industries. Okay. Data can do a lot of things. First of all, data is input to learning that can lead to improvements in products and services. Google search, the reason why Google search is really efficient is not only because of its algorithm, but also a lot of people use it. As more and more people use it, search becomes more accurate. Okay. So this is what you call network effects. And data also enables more personalized services and targeted business models. For example, if you're Amazon customer or if you subscribe to Netflix, then you get personalized recommendations based on your past history or based on your browsing history. Okay. And if you frequently watch YouTube or you use Facebook, then you have this display ads, and display ads are based on, once again, your personal history. So this is very much targeted. Different people, even if they watch the same YouTube channel, they might get different targeted advertising. Okay. This is what data enables Google to do, because Google owns YouTube. And data also creates, as I mentioned previously, strong network effects. As more people use the service, the more accurate the service becomes. And then that can also lead to economies of scale and scope. Now, when economists say network effects, what we mean by that is more users create more value to users. Okay. Take the example of eBay. Okay. As a lot of people try to buy and a lot of people try to sell, the auction becomes richer. Okay. Think of Airbnb. If there's only one person hosting accommodation, it won't be a whole lot useful. As more people try to rent out their accommodation, Airbnb becomes more useful. So this is what we call network effects. And also there is economy of scale and scope. Think of digital goods such as, for instance, Google search or advertising. They virtually have a zero marginal cost. It doesn't really cost them to produce one more piece of service, but then they usually have a huge fixed cost. Now this creates economy of scale. And also because data is input to a lot of goods and services, data can work as a barrier to entry. For example, if I own the data and a possible competitor tries to enter the market, and if I prevent the data to be used by this entrant, then entrant simply cannot function. Okay. So data can work as a barrier to entry. This is where, for instance, fintech revolution is coming very relevant, because government tries to make these financial industries more and more competitive, and they try to share, allow banks to share customer data so that new entrants can come in easily, and they can also introduce new services. And finally, in tech industry, there is a common saying which says that firms compete not in the market, but for the market. So this is competition for the market rather than in the market. When you say competition in the market, what I mean by that is you try to get some market share. That's competition in the market, coexisting with other competitors. When we say competition for the market, it means that you go all in. Once you win, then you take entire market. So think of Google, okay? Or think of Microsoft long time ago. Because of this strong network effects and data-powered economy of scale and scope, the winning firm is very easy to dominate entire market. So winning the market, and that's why this is called competition for the market. And this is done by this fortuitous cycle, which you call self-reinforcing cycle. Now, the logic runs like this. If you have more data, then as I mentioned previously, you can get better learning, and that leads to better targeted product and services, which is good for customers. And therefore, more customers come to your services, and more customers means more data. Okay, so there's this loop, positive cycle loop. Okay. This is why tech firms are very much into acquiring targets with lots and lots of consumer data. So before I talk about Google Fitbit merger, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Because I'm not sure about the audience background knowledge in economics, I'm kind of unsure whether I'm making myself understood or I'm completely waffling.